Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, and fellow adventurers. I am James Drake the Ninth, and we've got patch notes for Legends of Runeterra. Not something that I do a whole lot on my channel here, but it's huge. We're super excited. We've got infernal skins, like this really cool infernal Shen, and I just wanted to go over these notes, break them down with you. I have not looked at them yet, but I am going to do my best to give you, um, you know, sort of a novice's take on these cards. So first off, we have new cards on a patch. Okay, we're experimenting with a new approach to live balance this patch. In addition to the usual card updates, we've taken a holistic look at gameplay patterns that aren't easily or quickly addressable by changing existing cards, so instead we're adding a few new cards. This patch we took a look at regions that lack core tools to deal with wide boards, as well as elusives, leading to one-sided matchups against that archetype. And we've created a new spell for each of them to help shore up that weakness in Piltover and Zon, Targon, and Shurima. Okay, so I don't know how much I like the idea of hold on, I'm thinking, like trying to fix a problem with, something else. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about adding new cards specifically to fix other problems in the game. I remember hearing about this with Dead by Daylight. I have never played Dead by Daylight. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I remember hearing that if a particular play pattern became too unhealthy in the game, then the next characters would actually release with perks that specifically countered that play pattern. So, and it ended into a problem where nothing ever really got fixed. Just more stuff became problems. But let's take a look at the cards now. I'm sorry if my voice sounds shaky. I'm actually super cold. I'm trying to fix that, but whew. Okay, so we have a Shuriman card, 3 mana, slow speed, spell, Desert Duel. Give an enemy -2, -0 this round, and ally and that enemy strike each other. Okay, so it's a Shuriman strike. Or a Shuriman, well, shoot. Single combat. It's a Shuriman single combat. Well, we have some other changes in this patch to help. Sorry. Yawning from the cold. In this patch, to help Shurima handle multiple enemies, Shurima has always been reliant on vulnerable to address single targets. That's a strong game plan when you can attack, but we felt that they needed a tool that could also work on defense rounds. Okay, so it's, it's a similar to if you used Exhaust or Scrying Sands, and then, yeah, so it's an Exhaust or Scrying Sands into single combat. That's the effect. But it's a slow speed spell, so you can't use it in combat. So let's take a look at this, at it in play. Oh, neat. That's a neat little effect for the target. At least I think that's what that is. Cool. Targon is great at creating large single threats, but can struggle with wider boards. While we don't want to change that identity entirely, we did want to give them an option for slowing down multiple attackers so that their slower game plan has a chance. I like this. So Celestial Wonder, I'm sorry, I didn't read it, is a 5 mana fast speed, stun 2 enemies. An option for slowing down multiple attackers. I really want Yasuo decks to be good, but I don't think that this is going to be the card to make it good. Just saying that right now for anybody who is expecting me to take one side of the argument or the other. I want it to be good. You know, maybe it'll make it good, but I'm not gonna get my hopes up. However, like the card itself is, it's fast speed, which is good. It's reactive. It's I don't feel like it's too cheap. I'm trying to compare it to the other stun 2 enemy cards that that Targon has access to, because there is actually a lot of them. There's, Eye of the Rahorek here, which I don't remember that thing's cost, but I think it's 5 mana, and that'll stun the 2 weakest enemies the next turn. There's also the Invoke, the 3 mana Invoke card. That's the closest comparison, but that's slow, and you need to invoke it. So I think giving Targon access to a main deckable stun for at fast speed for 2 more mana, then they can invoke it, is good, because sometimes invoking out that Crescent Strike is just too slow. Oh, and watching it in action. Yep, that's kind of a primo moment, but I think that's the point. Are those new? I think those are new. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be targeting them to show that it's targeting them. That's a cool effect. Okay. Oh boy. 5 mana slow speed spell. Deal 3 to an enemy and 1 to all other enemies. Withering Wail without the drain. And goodbye spiders. Direct damage is meant to be a strength of Piltover and Zaun. And while that was definitely the case for single targets, their AoE options were not living up to that dream. Rocket Barrage should help keep Piltover and Zong as a strong option to look towards when you want to be sure your deck can deal with a horde of little aggressors. Yeah, okay. That they make a good argument. It's slow speed spell, so you can't, absolutely obliterate an open attack. But it is good. Deal 3 to an enemy and 1 to all other enemies, and that's oh, it shows if they'll die to the effect. I see. I like that. Okay. Yeah, definitely strong. Okay, card updates. As mentioned in the new card section, we wanted to make sure that every region had some tools to deal with the threats they might face. We also wanted to help out a couple of underutilized champions and give some gentle adjustments to some of the decks that have been leading the metagame for a long while. That being said, there are a few cards not being updated yet that we want to provide some extra context on. Yordles and Arms. We work on these patches several weeks in advance, and we worked on this one earlier than usual due to our week out. Yordles and Arms wasn't seeing nearly as much play when these changes were locked, but we are watching it now. The new removal cards being added, along with the other changes this patch, should have an effect on Yordles and Arms' efficacy as well, but we're keeping an eye on it. Fair. They make a good case argument. That's a fair reason for not making a change to Yordles and Arms here. Their case about the new removal cards being added, helping. I don't disagree entirely, but 2 of those were slow speed spells, so you can't. If you want to react, you have to be proactive. With the new spells most of the time. So I'm not entirely sure if it's gonna have as big of an effect as they're probably hoping. The Bandle Tree. We have changes planned for the Bandle Tree to alleviate the lack of interactivity in its win condition, but the changes are more complex to implement, so we have that targeted for our next balance patch. 6.0 on April 27th. So a month from now? Wait, are we actually going to get changes every month? Because that'll be amazing. Okay, here's a look at each of the card updates coming in this patch. Aphelios, level 1. Aphelios isn't changing directly, but we're bundling these moon weapon changes in the champion section since they very explicitly affect his game plan. Okay. Gifts from Beyond. Oh, so they're reverting the change that they made before. In case you don't know, Gifts from Beyond used to be 2 mana, and all the moon weapons also cost 2 mana. They changed it because, with the idea that it wouldn't affect the overall cost. They changed it from 1 for gifts to Gifts from Beyond and 3 for every other moon weapon because Lee Sin was highly abusing specifically Gifts from Beyond without, ever really. No. Was it? I apologize. I'm not entirely remembering correctly. But basically, other strategies were abusing this card in particular, and so they changed it without changing the actual costs, so that Aphelios would Aphelios' overall game plan wouldn't be affected. Didn't make Aphelios good, but I do believe it stopped the plans that were abusing it. Anyways, moving Aphelios' moon weapons to 3 mana helped contain him at a time where he was dominating the meta. But as we've also adjusted other cards he works well with, and as the game has grown, we think the moon weapons would be mostly safe at their original cost again. I like it. Crescendum change, summon a 2-cost follower from your deck if it has Nightfall activated, to summon a 2-cost follower from your regions. I like this change a lot. That all I'm gonna say is I like this change a lot. That really helps Aphelios, or just Crescendum in general. Crescendo presented a balance problem at any reasonable cost because of its ability to consistently retrieve a specific powerful 2-cost unit from your deck. While this did offer some interesting deck building challenges, it also limited our ability to make 2 strong cost followers in the future. And, I personally, I feel like this just feels better. Okay, Azir. You've summoned 13 units to you've summoned 13 units or landmarks. Yes, okay. That actually might make him faster now. Azir's love of units and Shurima's love of landmarks led to some internal strife, especially in Shurima-only strategies. Yep, this change should help Azir players feel better about their board no matter how they're filling it. Good. Alright. That might be a little bit too strong. That might make him a little bit too fast. But I think we'll have to see. Gnar changes? Gnar changes. But not the Gnar changes I think anybody hoped to see. Okay, well, basically he loses 1 power both levels. Fine. I think, a lot of people were hoping he would lose quick attack on level up, or, lose a point of health, or maybe his poking sticks would be fleeting instead of permanent, but, we'll just, small steps. You may have seen Gnar around Runeterra occasionally, and while we're happy to see a newly released champ succeed, there can be too much of a good thing. We wanted to make a smaller change to tone him back without making him completely unmega. Fair. And I think it was teased that that was what they were planning on going with in his own release trailer. Pantheon. He loses 1 power also. Pantheon has been succeeding in a number of strategies, and with his new feline friend around, we felt he needed to pack a little less punch on his own. Alright. Yeah. Okay. Difficult to say, whether or not that'll have much of an impact, if any, but Pike actually gets a nerf, losing 1 power. Lurkers have been a consistent force for a good... Lurk is literally the opposite of consistent, but okay. For a good bit of time now, and while they aren't completely dominant, we think that taking a few teeth off the sharks could let other decks shine more. You can see the Xerside Dunebreaker change further along in the patch notes as another example. Okay, if they think Lurkers is a problem, this is a good way to make it less of a problem. That's all I have to say about that. While Rumble has been having some success on his own, his Mecha Yordle friends have spent most of their time on the scrap heap. We're giving several of the weaker mechs a tune-up and making sure Rumble plays more nicely with his Mecha Yordle pals. Level up requirement, I've dealt 12 damage to, I've seen allied Mecha Yordles deal 12 damage. Does that still count himself? Or does he need to see these guys? Because he is a Mecha Yordle. Like if it counts himself, that's not much of a change. But I don't know. Like if it still counts himself, then he still doesn't need to be summoning Mecha Yordles. If it doesn't count himself, he needs to be summoning Mecha Yordles, and because of the tools that exist for summoning Mecha Yordles, that might actually slow him down. But you know, I absolutely do not mind seeing them push the Mecha Yordle archetype. I love these things. It's very clever, very smart design, in my opinion. You know, and these cards have very strong effects, but the cost in order to get them out onto the board is worth it. So Little Dipper gets extra power, Dune Hopper Mech gets an extra power, Trumpetecker or Tetcher, Trumpetecker, Salty Spinner gets an extra health, Trumpetecker gets an extra power, Fury Horn Crasher gets an extra health, which I think was sorely needed because that way you could attack with him multiple times, or block with him and attack and still get his effect off. Hey! Victor level 1 plus Hex Core upgrade token. Token cost, Hex Core upgrade now costs 0. Amazing. I don't want that. I want this. 0. I love it. But yeah, that's the only buff. Victor's Machine Evolution already asks a lot out of a player, between creating cards, playing a slow spell, and still managing to protect your Machine Overlord. By taking the mana cost off the Hex Core upgrade, we hope Victor can focus on his self-improvement without committing resources to the cause every turn. I still want Victor to be focus speed. I really do. But, a lot of these changes have just been small, and it's difficult for me as an amateur to really see how it's going to make a big difference. Like, I'm not sure if Aphelios is suddenly going to become great because of the mana cost shift. I don't think Lurkers, or I don't think, let's choose mechs. I don't think mechs are suddenly going to become great. I hope they do, though. That would be cool. So, like, these are very small changes, and I think I like the small steps. But maybe there's just bigger implications that I'm not seeing because I'm not I'm not great at the game. But followers, spells, and landmarks. Xerside Dunebreaker loses a health point. Just another lurk nerf. Twisted Catalyzer loses a point of power, something that I know some people have been calling for, so that it's, trades with less things. Darkness has been a deck holding its own at the top of the meta for a long while without ever really taking over. We wanted to reduce their ability to trade off with aggressive minions early while also progressing their late game plans. Yeah, so less ability to trade, and now that takes away their most consistent fearsome blocker, other than Senna, and Senna doesn't really want to be blocking most of the time. Oh, why did you nerf Demacia? While we were glad to see Vanguard Sergeant become more of a general use tool for Demacia, access to a well-statted body, and for Demacia, was just too good a deal for the Scouts deck. We're turning this one back, but going to look at more changes to elites in a future patch. Fine. I hear the promise of elite changes. I hear it. I'm trying not to get too excited about it, but I am, because I really want elites to, be elite again. Poor boy, Vanguard Sergeant. Okay. Conchologist loses a health point. Loping Telescope gains a health point, but also gains a mana cost. While Bandle City is meant to be good at manifesting answers, these two were doing so at a remarkably efficient rate. I don't think this is gonna fix it. I think it'll help, but like my problem with Conchologist is not, that he. Most people aren't the problem with the cards isn't that they, well, whether or not they could get on the board or whether or not they could be removed. The problem is the value that they create is generally, you know, extremely high and difficult to play around. You know, uh, especially Loping Telescope. Like taking it up to 3 mana will definitely help. The extra health stat, sure, maybe it'll need it to be worth the 3 mana, but 3 mana, manifest an epic, Gorlith the Unscalable, and suddenly you can't win the game because you can't block the Gorlith. Okay. Paddlestar. Deal from 4 to 5 to an enemy that attacked this round or is stunned. Targon is meant to be good at handling single threats slowly regardless of size. Paddlestar was certainly nailing the slowly part, but was falling short against larger targets. Yep. Okay. Three mana, but yeah, that makes it feel better, especially in a world where Ravenous Flock exists. You rarely do you play Paddlestar, but five damage might make it a bit of a tech for, it might now also fill the role of like helping with swarmy boards. Oh, hello. Quicksand. It's the same cost, but it's a lot. Quicksand just got a huge buff. Give an enemy -4, -0, and disable its keywords this round. Okay, 2. Give one enemy -4, -0, or 2 enemies -2, -0. Disable their positive keywords this round. This is big, I think, for Shurima's handling of swarms. Like all this removal of damage on Shurima is going to absolutely, it might make them one of the better swarm answer regions in the game. I'm not good at analyzing, holding every region against each other, but the fact that they can very cheaply reduce the power of so many units, like Quicksand, Exhaust, Scrying Sands, now just that, and 4 of your units have lost -2, -0, and 2 of them lost their positive keywords. Quicksand was potentially a potent answer to enemies with strong keywords, but its single target focus often left it ineffective against the kinds of decks it was meant to address. Now it's a much more flexible tool and can be a strong answer to a single built-up enemy or multiple sneaky little ones. Yes, okay. Shurima's swarm management is... Oh. This is not... Finishing my thought, Shurima's swarm management is a whole lot better now. Moving on to something I did not expect to see. She Who Wanders goes from... I'm reading and I'm not seeing a difference. Obliterate all followers with 4... Oh! She went from followers to units. Oh... She can just delete champions that you're holding in your hands. Oh my. We've all come a long way since She Who Wins was dominating LoR, and since she was restricted to only hit followers, she has mostly wandered out of people's decks. We still want her to be a top-rate finisher, and letting her disrupt the opposing game plan more effectively will hopefully give her a role as a late-game option. Yeah! Wow! Wow, okay. You still have to play her, right? It's not a summon effect. You have to play her, but wow. Okay. Sheriff Lariat Rose gets a +1/+1. Has a strong effect when she enters play, but was often unable to lay down the law effectively on her own. With a few extra stats, we think she'll be a more effective answer for Bilgewater decks looking to answer larger units. I like it. Oh, hello. We're looking... Oh, okay. Reading the effects. Sharp Sight goes from granting +2/+2 to granting +1/+2, and Twin Disciplines goes from granting +3/+0 or +0/+3 to granting +2/+0 or +0/+3. Basically, reducing the amount of power units can be, or you can grant to units on these two cards, which I have been seeing a lot of, particularly Sharp Sight. It's been around for a while. As we were looking at how to enable more interaction for various regions, we realized that these two premier combat tricks, okay, were a big part of what made it feel so hard to answer opposing threats. Yeah, I always have to worry about either of these two cards. While we like that both Twin Disciplines and Sharp Sight are both great defensive answers to removal, the fact that they were also excellent on offense meant that decks could include them without losing any aggression. This change should push players to have a harder choice between protecting their units and including tools that end the game on the spot. Also, we looked at a number of options to keep Twin Disciplines symmetrical, but making them Fraternal Twin Disciplines was ultimately what felt the most fair. Fair enough. Ooh! Hello! The king has a potent effect when his son is around, but hasn't been much of a ruler in his own right. With a little more power, he can do more to hold the throne. A little more power? That... Wow! That is a 2-power buff. Tattered Banner. Ooh. Effect is no longer consumed by units that already have Challenger. Okay, so this is a little bit... This is a small change that should hopefully keep Valor from stealing Quinn's banner all the time. Darn bird. Is Quinn an elite? I don't think Quinn is, hold on. It's gonna take me a second to get there. Should have had this already open, but, like, I could be mistaken, but, yeah, Riot. Quinn's not an elite. Make her an elite first. Like, I get the change. It's a good change. Very good QOL. But also, come on, Riot. Know your own game. Sacred Protector, Shenboat. When I'm summoned, draw a Shen. Allies with barrier have double attack 2. Play. Give an ally barrier and draw a Shen. Allies with barrier have double attack. Okay, so it's a small buff similar to King Jarvan, you know, to help it when it's on its own. Yeah. Sacred Protector makes a pretty exciting promise, but does not deliver on its own. We wanted to help you not just find Shen, but get him closer to a devastating level 2 attack. Yes. Sigil of Malice. Loses 1 cost. While we don't want Sigil of Malice to become a premier damage spell without reputation, it can afford to be a little less embarrassing. This change only affects base cost. Cost after reputation is still 1. Oh! Calculated Creations now grants +1/+1 to the created unit. Creating a machine army isn't cheap, so why shouldn't they come with a little improvements pre-included? I agree. Flash Bomb Traps. Cards that previously planted Flash Bomb Traps in the top 10 cards of an opponent's deck now plant them in the top 8 cards of an opponent's deck. This affects Caitlyn, Sting Officer, Advanced Intel, Justice Rider, House Wump, Piltover Peacemaker, and various items and powers in the Path of Champions, including House Wump, Riot. I don't think House Wump is main deckable yet. Flash Bombs are a potent part of the trap strategy, but shuffling them into a larger pool of cards could often leave you wondering where all those traps actually went. This change should let your bombs pay off more consistently. Thank you. I don't know if it's the buff traps need, but it definitely will help. And it's a good one. Ooh, careful preparation. Lose down one cost. See, what does it even do? To play, place a card from your hand into your deck, predict, then create an exact copy of the chosen card in hand. Oh. Careful preparation can let predict pull off some really exciting and tricky plays, but it was just too expensive to typically make the cut. Yeah. Alright. I like that. Yeah. I might try making words are disappearing. I might try to make like a zillion echo deck around this. Camp for the Doubt. Gains a stat buff and let me see. And their effect is changed. A buff from targeted allies 6 times this game to targeted allies in 4. While Camphor and Pantheon might not get along, we didn't like that they also asked you to track 2 different but very similar forms of targeting allies. It was also looking doubtful that Camphor would find a place in any decks at her current stat line, so we decided to also give her a slight boost. Nice. So, yeah. So that's it for all the card changes. Real quick, I'm gonna go over them and just like I don't know. This is good. This is big. I like this. I'm realizing how much of an amateur I really am because it's difficult for me to track how all of this is going to affect everything. Traps are going to be stronger. I don't know. Calculated creations might see play in Victor decks. Victor decks might actually be seeing more play now, which I am a fan of. You know, some small changes. I mean, this isn't a small change, so Jarvan might come back. Let me see. Shurima's getting a lot of options for neutralizing opponents. Maybe too many options. Like now Renekton has access to a shoot, where he has access to Desert Duel. Renekton now can basically freely strike an enemy. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. There's just a lot of small changes, but there's a lot of them. So the fact that there is a lot could mean that there's a bigger shift on the meta than anybody of my caliber can see just by looking at patch notes. But I like it. I like seeing all these changes, and I like seeing cards like Careful Preparation, Calculated Creations, and Sigil of Malice getting buffs, because they're cards in the game that exist that are underperforming, and there's no reason why they shouldn't have buffs to try and make them do what they say they do better. Now let's take a look at something that I noticed earlier. This patch, we're introducing the first of a suite of gameplay updates, which we're colloquially referring to as Premonition. So, okay. Oh, look at that, right there. You can see the amount of damage that you're going to do without the Oracle. Okay, nice. And then you can see that these two are going to die unless you give a buff and deal damage to that one, and then you'll see that that one is also going to die, and you're going to gain a life. That is amazing. That is so cool. I love it. That's really neat. That's actually extremely neat and satisfying. Okay, so Nexus Health Pre-Visualization, we've all been there, missing lethal or passing on block because you forgot about that pesky Dreadway or a champion leveling up after committing an attack, and you forget to check the Oracle's Eye. With Nexus Health Pre-Visualization, you'll see exactly how much damage you're dealing or how much your Nexus is taking before it's too late. The indicator will get a bit more empathetic if incoming damage is lethal. Nice. Unit Destruction Previs, just like with Nexus Health, it's easy to lose track of just how much damage a unit is taking, especially when you're facing a 5-spell stack and tough/formidable units on the board. This update makes it so units will now display cracks when they're facing lethal damage during an interaction. Great. Honestly, this has made me a lot more excited than a lot of the changes that I've seen. But that's probably because I have no understanding of how this game works. In a macro sense. But I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Legends of Runeterra patch notes. You all have been absolutely amazing for staying with me for so long. I am James Drake the Ninth, and until I see you again in the next video, may the road rise up to meet your feet.